All right, the regular board meeting of June 8th, 2023 is called to order at 6:30 p.m. Can I get roll call, please?
Endorsement here. Costin here. Lester Mascot here. Paul Scott here.
And Brianna Castelli here. 1C regular board meeting agenda. It's recommended the board approve the regular meeting agenda for June 8th, 2023. Can I get a motion?
I'll move. Second. Good. No. Second.
Discussion? Any changes?
No changes.
Call for question. All those in favor?
Ted Jordan for that. Costin, aye. Mascot. Paul Scott, aye.
Brianna Castelli, aye. Public participation.
None at this time. Thank you.
All right, 3A, closed session discussion items. We may discuss conference with labor negotiators, public employee discussion, discipline, dismissal, and release, conference with legal counsel, and student matters. 3B, adjourn to closed session. Can I get a motion?
I'll move. Second.
Discussion, call for question. All those in favor?
Ted Jordan for that. Costin, aye. Mascot, aye. Paul Scott, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye. We are adjourned to closed session at 6:32 p.m. All right, 3C, the regular board meeting of June 8th, 2023 will reconvene at 7:30 p.m. Flag salute will be led by Lester Gascon.
Stand, face the flag, hand over your heart, and begin. I
pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our civility statement will be read by Tim Jorgensen.
Communicate clearly and concisely with a respect for the time of others. Listen objectively, carefully considering the opinions of others. Understand the counterproductive effects of disruptive, demeaning, or intimidating behaviors. Understand and respect district policies and procedures. Maintain a respect for the rich history of the district and the efforts of others who have served in the past.
Thank you, Tim. 5A, report of action taken in closed session. No action was taken in closed session. 6A, public comments, recognitions, and reports.
We don't have any public comment cards for this.
All right, moving along, 7A, Ada representative. Okie dokie, 7B, CSEA representative. 7C, student representative to the board. She's not here yet, so as soon as she comes in, we'll just circle back to her. 7D, superintendent gold standard report.
All right, thank you. So Alex, I'm just gonna make a minor adjustment. We can skip through the first slide with the student board representative, please. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, tonight I'll be covering 2 initiatives from our existing strategic plan: student achievement and effective instruction and leadership. Start off with our High Desert open house. I attended the open house last week. Congratulations to High Desert students and staff for a successful open house. Your hard work and commitment will benefit your students well beyond their middle school years. Well done. The Night of the Stars at Vasquez High School was held last week on May 31st. We awarded 8 students with a superintendent senior scholarship for the amount of $500 each. Thank you to the seniors who submitted their essay as part of the application process. We truly appreciate you and your efforts. Department recognitions, academic excellence, valedictorian, and excellence in athletics were recognized and honored that evening. Congratulations to all students and staff for your incredible dedication and hard work. Next, we got the senior walk. We were thrilled to coordinate the 2023 senior walk just the other day on June 7th. Thank you to Vasquez High School, High Desert, and Meadowlark. Thank you most importantly to our graduating seniors for inspiring our future Mustangs. Nice pics there. And we have a video. All right, during the past year, we have watched our Vasquez seniors grow more poised and confident in their capabilities, and we are thrilled to see that growth. On behalf of the district and school board, we'd like to congratulate our graduating seniors. We are immeasurably proud of each and every one of you. Great job last night at the graduation ceremony. We congratulate all promoting and graduating students and applaud our Meadowlark, High Desert, and Vasquez staff for their tireless efforts throughout the year. We look forward to the 4th grade Meadowlark promotion and the 8th grade promotion at High Desert, both set for tomorrow. Next, we have 2.0 effective instruction and leadership. The 2023 Los Angeles County Teachers of the Year is an honors competition which spotlights teaching excellence and exemplary professionalism in public education. The competition is the largest of its kind in the state and is part of the oldest and most prestigious honors contest in the U.S. for public school teachers. The Teacher of the Year program, which features an annual luncheon recognition in September for all participants, is designed to provide much deserved recognition for teachers. The AADUSC Teacher of the Year Committee received and reviewed nominations. Mr. Sheldon Sparks was selected as AADUSC's 2023 Teacher of the Year. On May 24th, we were excited to announce our Teacher of the Year at the Vasquez High School staff meeting. You see Mr. Sparks, Dr. Chamberlain, and my team present at the staff meeting to announce the recognition. Now, Mr. Sparklian has been submitted to LACO for phase 2 of the process, where he will represent our district and interview for the top tier selection by LACO. The next round of results will be provided to the districts in late August. So congratulations, Mr. Sparks, awesome recognition. All right. And the next item for effective instruction and leadership. Switching gears really quick, I'd like to share a district office reorganization that will occur for the new fiscal year. Currently, human resources and services and pupil services fall within one department. For the upcoming fiscal year, I'm looking towards a reorganization of our district office, which involves shifting 3 areas of focus to 2 different managers. Moving forward, human resources will be its own standalone department, while ed services and pupil services will be their own department. With that said, human resources office will be rebranded as a people culture office. The coordinator for the PCO office will not only be tasked with personnel, resources, and support functions, but will also be versed at conflict mediation and resolution. Conflict management strategies, when implemented with fidelity, will increase employee engagement, retention, eliminate distractions, and support a healthy work culture. In addition, the coordinator will provide clear strategies to prevent conflict, a plan for conflict resolution, to empower individual staff members to act decisively and consistently when situations may arise. In addition, I'm looking to have satellite offices at each school site for the coordinator. They will provide the convenience of being on site with established office hours. Their accessibility and visibility may mitigate early concerns and issues. Both the coordinator of PCO and the director of ed services and pupil services have been posted on EdJoin. I'm eager to provide the community and the district timely updates as we move forward with the process. Thank you. Oh, thank you. All right, Miss Emily, I'm going to put you on the spot really quick as part of the superintendent's report. So glad you made it with Mom. I just want to.
Sorry, I will wait.
You're here, so that's all that matters.
You were perfectly accurate.
I looked at her chart, that says okay.
Okay, we're clear. We're good to go. We'd like to start off, conclude this report by congratulating and thanking our student board member, Emily Unanyan. Most student board members are high school students and serve a 1-year term. They have outstanding academic performance, as well as rich experiences in extracurricular and youth leadership programs. These students represent and advocate for their communities and use their role to improve education for all students of their districts. Emily is no exception. Not only is she excelling in her academic studies, she's also a super athlete, as we all come to learn, a member of the National Honor Society and vice president of the sophomore class of 2024, while serving as our school board student rep with great pride and efficiency. We thank you, Emily, for a job well done. We know you are destined for great accomplishments in your future. We are extremely proud of you. Thank you to your mom and dad for sharing your time with us. Congratulations, Emily.
We'll go ahead and do our comments for Ms. Emily.
You just to go first. Emily, it's been quite an accomplishment on your behalf to be here, and you've done an excellent job. It's been great. We've been passing notes back and forth. Don't tell me about it, but the good old days. I am just very appreciative of your hard work, and you're covering all the campuses. You can with detailed reports. When you're not here, you give your homework to the superintendent. He reads it on your behalf. And Emily is one of those validations that other activities outside of the core subjects really makes a well-rounded student. And in this case, with athletics and your other endeavors, it's going to make you a very substantial person. And we look forward to seeing you again. And thank you again for your hard work and service.
I've had the opportunity to join my daughter and Emily back and forth to swim a few times. And the most impressive part is always the depth of the conversations. And I've always thought of Marina, my daughter, as being very analytical, but let me tell you, there's nobody more analytical than Emily. The things they talk about, they don't realize they're listening to, they're just going on and on and on, analyzing everything in their lives to extreme detail. And it's pretty incredible. So thank you for your dedication to your school, your friends, your community, your ability to communicate and represent the students of BHS has been just amazing. I hope you continue to pursue more leadership and service positions in the future, because you will.
Hi, Ellie, we don't know each other outside of here, but I'm always been very impressed with everything you've ever done and presented. Takes a tremendous amount of dedication and bravery, courage to sit up here and do that. So I hope my own kids will be willing to do that one day. You're a good role model.
Emily, I want to thank you for your professional, equitable representation of all the students in the district, starting off from the kids at Meadowlark all the way to VHS. You conduct yourself here in a very professional way, and I very much appreciated that. You're always thorough. Your comments are poised. Your vocabulary is excellent. And you work this in when you have a very busy schedule. So on behalf of the district administrators and the board, I commend you for the way you have represented all of the students in the district during your service. You will be a hard one to follow.
Emily, the board and the district have been extremely blessed to have you as our student board representative, representing the district in each school site and every student on all of our campuses. You have done so with integrity. You're extremely bright, you're talented, you're very articulate, and like everybody else said, that big shoes, definitely big shoes to fill. So I thank you for giving up your time, which is very precious with all of the other extracurriculars and academic things that you do. You just really made an impact on this work for this year. So I thank you for being here and for giving us your time and your talents.
You can block me out.
Right, moving on to seven.
President.
Oh, Emily, we skipped your student board member report. So we'll go ahead and circle back to 7C, student representative to the board.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So our district is finally wrapping up the end of the school year. Yesterday was graduation. So congratulations to the class of 2023 and good luck to whatever it is you end up pursuing. Tomorrow is culmination for our 8th graders at High Desert. And it's also the last day of school. As this is my last board meeting as student representative, I'd like to say thank you to all of you. Thank you for the flowers and all your kind words. It really means so much to me. It has been an honor and a pleasure to serve this position and be chosen. It's incredibly humbling and it makes me so grateful that I was chosen to fulfill this position for the district. And lastly, I'd sort of like to leave you guys with my last advice and insight as student representative. We have so much potential at this district. We're like truly like no other. And I think it's so important that we listen to one another as a community, whether it's a student, a parent, a teacher, a board member, just listen to one another. And we're all here working towards the same goal, to better our schools, to better our district. And I think that communication and just being kind and compassionate and having those listening ears to whatever it is will help us work through whatever problem comes in the future and will help us be a really great district. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Definitely wise beyond your word or your years. And good job, Mom. She's a good one. Okay, so now we will move on to 7E submissions.
No submissions.
Okay, 8A, or 8 word comments. Tim?
Well, first off, I want to thank you again for sitting in the chair. It's been wonderful to have you here. You've just done a great job. Thank you. Well, it's the end of the year, and I want to congratulate all of our students for their promotions and their efforts throughout the school year. Moving to the next grade level is always exciting. It's a new challenge. The 4th grade students are going to move on to 5th grade, the new campus site, and our 8th graders will join the Mustangs at the high school. And then, of course, our graduating ceremony last night at the high school, where we had our seniors and all the accomplishments that they did and all the successes that they had, and whatever, like Emily said, wherever they're going to go, whatever they're going to choose to do, whether it's a gap year, a private university, a state institution, some college of the K and Navy, it makes no difference. We're proud of you. I know your parents are proud of you. Just want to thank them for their hard work. And I want to make sure that I make special recognition for Ashley Hinkle, the salutatorian, and of course our valedictorian, Myra Snyder. The hard work that these two ladies did that represented the school, themselves, their family was impeccable. And I can't go without saying that we want to thank our teachers for their hard work, the coaches for the athletic programs that help our students be successful in the classroom. And of course, the staff that maintain our facilities. And then, of course, I saw a couple of parents, I said, congratulations, parents. Don't forget to put the suitcase out on the front porch, because they're gonna be remodeling some, making some fun remodels on those empty rooms when kids go off to school. And then, of course, last but not least, congratulations, Mr. Sparks. I talked to him briefly before the graduation last night. And I said, the work's just getting started. He goes, yeah, now he's got a lot of writing to do to prepare. He'll represent us well, and we look forward to having him do well when he goes down to Lincoln. Again, thanks to everyone for getting close to the end of the school year. Students, last day tomorrow, so you need to behave on your last day. And just everybody have a great summer.
It's amazing how quickly the school year goes. I've been here for 6 months. I feel like I've absorbed a lot, I've learned a lot, but the job is just beginning. So thank you for everybody, all of our students, congratulations to them, obviously, all the teachers and staff, and everybody who makes this place run every day. It's just, it's amazing. It's a big job, and it's a lot of work, and I can see the dedication here. It's really quite nice. Mr. Superintendent, I really look forward to our time in the future. I think we're going to have a good role here, and I'm really looking forward to it. I have some people I want to thank particularly, and this doesn't mean that other people aren't appreciated. It's just some people that really jumped out at me since I've been in this community. The first one's Mr. Sheldon Sparks. Your dedication, honesty, and passion have been both positive and uplifting. Your excellent work as athletic director has knocked on the nose by our community and our students. Your coaching skills have reached inspired so many of our students. And finally, as ADA rep, and I think you're no longer ADA rep, but you really clearly represent the needs of those you represent with intensity, professionalism. It is really nice for people to come out and say what they think, say what they mean, and do it in a professional manner. Definitely already. The PTSO organizations, thank you to all our leaders and volunteers at all our campuses for bringing our communities and students together. It's really important, and I know a lot of hard work goes into the fundraising and everything that goes on there. Strategic plan, all those that put their time and resources in the strategic plan, very important. Although there's still a lot to do, I believe when this thing's complete, it's going to be one of the most impactful and important part of our district's future. I'm looking forward to how this thing turns out. The Laco Arts Block program, I know it's a little bit rocky getting people, but Ms. Carrie Owens has just done a fantastic job filling in for the TOSA that we're looking for. So very big thanks for that. And I think that program hopefully will turn into something fantastic for our students. On a personal level, there's 2 teachers I'd like to thank. It's unusual, I think, for a student to come home and say such wonderful things about some of their teachers. And the first one is Ms. Stillwell. I don't know her very well. I don't think we've even been introduced, but my daughter Marina's just fantastic things to say. She loves the way she teaches. She loves the way that she prepared for her AP test. And so thank you, Ms. Stillwell. And the other one is Captain Frolic. Any teacher that can send a kid home in this era and they will watch Star Trek has got to be impactful. And it just warms my heart because she just despises that show, but she will do it for extra credit. And it's I'm a Trek, so what can I say? So thank you, Mr. Frolic, as well. And that's all. Thank you.
I got to go to my first graduation and be on stage with the VHS team. I watched all the VHS grads and I really enjoyed that. It was a fantastic moment. Night of Stars, watching everybody be awarded for all their achievements was it was just fantastic. Something that stood out to me though during the graduation was how well loved our teachers are. I don't remember that when I went to school, but you could hear the cheers and all the comments and everything, and it's truly a lot of teachers have made a lot of impact in a lot of students' lives. And I think that's something that really speaks to the uniqueness of our district and how special a place this actually is. And I just don't think you see that in that many places like you do here. Dr. Sakian, what percentage of our students graduate?
For our fantastic counselors and the hard work of our teachers, 100%.
100% graduation. We should really celebrate that. And our teachers and staff and all the leadership needs to be, district needs to certainly be congratulated. It's a job well done. That's all I had.
Okay, I'm gonna leave the summary of the graduation last night to our president, gave a fine talk. First up, congratulations, Sparks. I wish you well in the next level, because we all know that the teachers discriminate against gym teachers. We know that, right, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, good luck, Sparks. Represent us well at the county level. I love county awards. A couple things I want to talk about. First, at High Desert, I went to a couple things. One was the open house. I remember open houses where you like went in, if you were me, and you were dragged around from teacher to teacher, who finally got the opportunity to tell your parents what a rotten person you were. And I lived in fear of that, right? But the High Desert thing was more of a celebration of just about everybody, and the kids were up there giving testimonials, and they didn't appear to be paid to give the testimonial about how good their teachers were. The facility was impeccable. And then I went to a sports night thing, and I've had female students. My older kids are, sports was easier for me to support when I could walk and I was younger, but I've had girls, so I haven't been involved in the sports. And I looked around at sports night, and there were parents donating all kinds of food. The gym was impeccable. The banners, everything. And I used to sit up here a few years ago and worry about what was happening to the sports program at PHS. And I will say that I think that the sports program at High Desert is going to be single-handedly the big thing that recovers those sports programs at the high school. And it will also be a really, really big attractant for ADA. I think that Tim has talked about, not everyone is destined to go to Major League Baseball or anything, but there are kids who want to compete and play. And there are all kinds of colleges out there that, small colleges that will welcome athletes that don't play Class A balls. I was never so impressed. And then I want to talk a little bit about Principal Van Hornum. She was up there just talking about the school, talking about the programs, and it sounded like the best sales pitch for a school that I had ever heard. And I don't want to get into this too deeply, and don't be offended, Michelle, but she's not a very emotional person. She's fact-based, and that's why people can learn math from her. But everything she was saying was something that you could go put your finger on tangibly, and what the facility looked like, what the programs looked like, what the performance of the students looked like, and what the culture of the parents of the campus was. That's how I measure things. It's all factual. If anybody would bring their friends, they would be wanting to check out the school, and the reputation that our students and staff make and the way the facilities look is really what brings people, and the rest of it's all lives on a computer screen. So congratulations to that whole team over there. VHS, I went to Night of the Stars. That's always very rewarding. It's very humbling to sit up there and realize that we go through an agenda every 2 weeks and say yes, sometimes we squabble and, represent our own personalities. But at the end of the day, we really don't have anything to do with the success and when it comes to an individual kid working through a math problem, or somebody working hard, or the team coming together. And so I like Night of the Stars a ton. It was very inclusive. Everybody, they had awards for everybody, but they were all earned awards. I'm not much on everybody gets a soccer trophy. I didn't go up that way. Oh, there she is. I should repeat what I just said. You gotta watch it on YouTube tomorrow. As I said, wonderful things about your entire team and your school, and you love every one of them.
Thank you.
Okay, I thought graduation of the class of 2020 was bad. Because the kids couldn't have a ceremony. Last night I sat there, and we were up here approving a different curriculum. It seemed like every 2 weeks. people were worried about forced vaccines and who knows what. The teachers were trying to teach kids on computers, and then some of it come back, and it was just a mess. So the class of 2023 had every possible blockade thrown in their way to success. You all made it through it. That's great resilience. And I know on behalf of this board, I'm proud to say that you go out into the world and say, I come out of Acton, California, and it will mean something. So congratulations to you all. Grant time. You know, I've told this story again before, so I'm not going to say it again. Our art teacher visited my home at the beginning of summer when I was in second grade, and just finished second grade. Arts has always held a spot in my heart because of that visit, but I went to this play at Metal Art, and in my 8 years, going on 8 years as a school board member, in my almost 18 years as a parent in this district, I have never seen anything so incredible as this play. I'll tell you why. Don't take this the wrong way, superintendent. Do you know there are superintendents out there that make $450,000 a year? You know that every time budgets get cut, what's the first thing that goes out the window? Oh, we don't have money for arts, we don't have money for music. Well, without arts and music, how is the individual supposed to express their individuality? We're all individuals. If we were all like me, the world would be perfect, but we're not. Wow. Terrible, only I would say that, but think about that. The individuality of people is shown and expressed through arts and music and stuff that lets people show their creativity. And when you have an appreciation for the creativity of others and what brings them as an individual, that's what makes community. Me yelling at you is not community. Me being loud is not community. That's community. When you take arts out of the classroom and put them outside and lead everybody to believe that there's not enough money for arts. Well, I haven't seen much individuality of people putting together slide rules and sitting there and having a math competition. I commend you all for being able to do that, but that is not what builds people and tolerance and civility and all those other things. So what happened this time is you have a young teacher, student teacher, who's being supported by a veteran teacher who has been my child Tammy's homeroom teacher probably 17 different times. She's the longest veteran of Metal Art School, and she's doing great at the high school now. But at the end of the day, art was brought back into that school, and it was all an internal effort. I know the community supports arts. I know that. I like that. But the teachers put the whole thing together. You know who funded it? The teachers. Oh, teachers spending their own money, right? That's a new thing. But everybody got together. Young teacher comes in, does a play. She said that they did this play at her school when she was in 4th grade. Brings it in here. The whole campus came together. I learned more about 1850s United States history in 45 minutes from a bunch of little kids, and they were all participating. Nobody paid for an enrichment program. It was all part of it. So let's talk about what that means long term. I hear people peddling these words that they learn at the conference. Oh, collaborative, throw a few out there, whatever, you know, I can't even think of them, they make me sick, but they're just words, and they mean nothing. But when you give a teacher the ability to take art and show somebody that this art that you just drew shows perspective, or this play you just did teaches, when you take arts away from the teacher, you take an integral part of the curriculum in which that teacher can reach the individual student. So here's what I would really like to see as a school board member. This is not a directive, you know me better than that. If I sit up here and nag long enough, stuff shows up on the agenda. But we have a really cool principal network, and the principals are working with each other. And Lester over here is a sales rep and a brand person, and you know where I work, I'm big on that too. But we don't have an ability for people to look at kindergarten and go, I'm going all the way to Vasquez High School. well, what can they tie on to? Well, this is one of the things they can tie on to. So I would hope that the kids who did this play, and it was amazing, they had to play 2 days and there was a completely different cast on both days. So they reached every kid in the 4th grade class. So what I would like to see is this arts thing that we're talking about, get it back in the classroom. You don't need to depend on the outside world. And whether or not somebody can get a ride to school or enrichment programs, but get the money or not. Move those kids, take that with you to their 5th grade and 6th grade and move it up. And in no time, you will have a performing arts program and everything else you need. So this, Miss O'Brien and Miss Scheide, you did a wonderful, wonderful thing. It impressed me. I'm always impressed by things, but this struck home to me, so thank you.
I always feel like when it gets all the way down to me that everybody's already said everything that I wanted to say. But I am gonna reiterate a couple of things. When Ken was talking about the facilities at High Desert, it wasn't long ago. That the High Desert gym looked post-apocalyptic. It was a scary place and the wallpaper was ripped off and there were holes and ceiling tiles missing and it was just, it had been well used. So over the years, it's been, revamped and redone, and then now with every new change, it makes such a huge difference. And I know that that comes from you, Michelle. I'm looking at it. I know everybody else can't see that I'm looking at Michelle, but Mrs. Van Ornum, it comes from you and your team. So, and lots of volunteer hours and donated funds. So thank you to everybody that has made High Desert what it is. It was really, really fun to go, to your open house, to High Desert's open house, and see the whole recap of every amazing thing that has happened on that campus all year long, and students getting up and demonstrating everything. I didn't know when I walked in, I was asking people, what is this? I thought this was open house. Am I at the wrong event? What event are we at? I thought we were coming to open house because I was expecting to just walk in, visit classrooms, talk to some parents, see amazing things that kids had done in the classroom, and then leave. And that was not what it was. It was so much more. But we also got that classroom aspect, and we got to go see the art on the walls and all that good stuff. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. So kudos to High Desert students, staff, parents, all of it. It was very cool. I'm very sad that I missed the High Desert athletic appreciation and the Metal Art open house and the Night of the Stars. I just can't be everywhere all at once. I wish I had a clone because those were absolutely incredible events. So I don't want to, just because I wasn't there, I still want to congratulate the staff and the students and everybody that was involved in those incredible things going on. Especially that senior walk. That is one of my favorite events of the whole year. Makes me cry every year watching the seniors walk through, holding the hands of kindergartners, and then the high fives at High Desert, and all the cheers and everything, and watching the faces of teachers and staff recognizing students and students walking back on their campus. Such a great event. I wish I could have been there. So that's one of those things that makes our school district so special. Going to a small school, being able to go back where you're familiar, and I'm sure that those seniors knew some of the kids that they were walking by and high-fiving and, you know, having them yell out their names. It's just such an incredible event. So I hope that never ever goes away. Definitely something that those kids will always remember. Mr. Sparks, I know I said congratulations last week, but now that it's been officially presented, huge congratulations, and so deserving Teacher of the Year. You are just an incredible person, an incredible friend, incredible teacher, just an amazing colleague. You're Teacher of the Year times 1,000 in my opinion. So huge congratulations to you. And VHS graduation. Absolutely a beautiful event. I love getting together with all of those, standing in the gym with all of the graduates, and the excitement is just on high, and everybody's hugging and giggling and coming together as one student body, all of the staff walking through and hugging everybody, and just seeing the pride on the students and staff and parents. I do feel very blessed to be a part of it, so thank you to the staff for all of your efforts, all 4 years. Getting all of those students to graduate and having a 100% graduation rate for the second year in a row that I know of, and it could have been before that too, I'm not really sure, but I know that this is the second year in a row that we've had a 100% graduation rate. That's huge. That's absolutely incredible. And I know that the common denominator is not anybody on the board. The common denominator is not even the admin there. Although I know that they do a huge amount of work. The common denominator is the teaching staff and the counseling staff. And I know that they have just worked tirelessly to get those kids to earn the credits. Those kids have busted their tails to make sure that they all had all of their credits and knew what they needed to do. And that says a lot about our parents as a whole in our community when we have 2 graduating classes in a row, graduating at 100%. That just says a whole lot about the district, all the way from kindergarten, all the way up. And huge congratulations to Nicole Saucedo and Miss Tiffany. Good job. We really appreciate you, and it shows in our numbers when you have 100%. I'll say it 2 more times, 100% graduation rate. So congratulations, class of 23, congratulations to the staff, and congratulations to the parents. And that's all I have, so we will go ahead and move on to 9A, approval of consent calendar items. It's recommended the Board of Trustees approve the consent calendar items 8B through 8E as submitted. Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion? Any changes?
No changes.
Okay.
I love seeing when we're taking advantage of piggyback bids, when we're trying to look out into the market and see what others have competed for, or you put in a proper bid process, then we can lean on those work that others have already done and get pricing that we normally would not get as a small school district. So well.
Yes. All right, call for question. All those in favor?
Tim Jorgensen.
Cost I.
That's gone.
Paul Scott, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye. 10A, personnel action report. Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second. Dr. Sahakian.
Thank you. No changes so far. We did include for the first time, I believe, the summer school assignments as well as ESY, just for the sake of record keeping and historical record keeping. Want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, call for question. All those in favor?
Tim Jorgensen.
Cost I.
That's gone.
Paul Scott, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye. 10B, Acton Agua Dulce, California Schools Employees Association, Chapter 473 proposal for 2023-24 negotiations for collective bargaining.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, thank you. CSTA chapter 473, they provided our district a reopener with articles that were presented for, in particular, duty hours, salary, benefits, and leaves.
Okay, this is not an action item, so we can just move on, correct? 1C, Acton Agua Dulce Unified School proposal for 2023-24 negotiations for collective bargaining. Can I get a
I'll
motion?
move.
Second.
Thank you. At the minimum, the district intends to address the 4 articles, duty hours, salary, benefits, and leaves as presented by CSTA.
Thank you. 10D, declaration of public hearing of CSEA's initial contract proposals for negotiations and ADUSD initial contract proposals for negotiations according to government code section 3547. This is the hearing. Can I get a motion to open the hearing at 8:15?
Second.
Okay, the hearing is open. Dr. Sakian?
Thank you. It's our recommendation for our trustees to conduct a public hearing of CSEA's initial contract proposals for negotiation and the AADUS initial contract proposals for negotiation according to government code section 3547.
Okay, discussion?
There's no public comment.
No public comments. Thank you. That is something.
Okay. So we don't need to vote. We will close the hearing at 8:15 p.m. Acceptance of CSEA's initial contract proposals for negotiations according to government code 3547. Can I get a motion?
Move.
Second.
It's our recommendation for the board to accept CSEA's initial contract proposals for negotiation, please.
Discussion? Hearing none, call for question. All those in favor?
Tim Jorgensen, I.
Cost and I.
That's gonna.
Well, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye. Acceptance of AADUSD's initial contract proposals for negotiations according to government code 3547. Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
It is our recommendation for the board to accept AADUSD's initial contract proposal for negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, call for question. All those in favor?
Tim Jorgensen, I.
Cost and I.
That's going.
Well, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye. 11A, classroom space for the 2023-24 school year. Can I get a motion?
Move.
Second.
Dr. Sakian?
Thank you. This evening we have a presentation for floor space options for our trustees and communities to hear and review. I know there's been discussions of potential increase in students in terms of enrollment, particularly at the youngest levels, be it pre-K as well as TK. And Mr. Vinsko is going to go ahead and provide us an overview of options, particularly for our TK program at this time. Mr. Vinsko.
Good. All right. Just hold back.
Yeah. All right, good evening, board members and community. My name is Kevin Benstos, as superintendent of business for the Dulce Unified School District. Tonight, I'm going to present to you our immediate solutions for our upcoming school year for the potential increase in enrollment, mostly for the TK and pre-K areas. Partially because the TK pre-K program has a little bit different ratios than the rest of the schools. The state has put in a 12-to-1 or a 24-to-2 ratio for this grade, and so it causes a little bit different, causes a little more challenges than, say, the other grade levels. So this last year we were pretty tight on space, and so we looked at different options. We actually had one of our project managers who have been managing the High Desert project come by the Acton campus to look and see what DSA already DSA approved buildings that we have. Because as in the presentation, you'll see that we have DSA appointments are about 7 months out right now. And that doesn't include any design, that doesn't include anything. So even if you wanted to put a temporary classroom building on a school site, we're looking at 7 months out. So we couldn't just go out and say, put another classroom on Meadowlark. We would have to, we need to design something before that. So again, we brought our project manager out to look and see what buildings we already had on site. And we do have the 2 buildings in that are currently housing the what's that? Sunny days. Sunny days. Thank you. I was going to say sunshine, but sunny days. There are 2 portable buildings, and so that was one of our main options. So what we consider are this options A and B are basically refurbishing these buildings I'll get into the exact details of what that entails upcoming, but here you can see a little table of what the options are and what the costs. So option A is just replacing, basically leaving everything the same in terms of the playground. And replacing it and refurbishing the sand. We have about a $50,000 one-time cost, but we would gain 2 classrooms and an additional playground to be able to house about 50 to 60 students. So in case our enrollment goes up by that, we would be able to control or at least have space for those 50 to 60 students. The other 2 options, C and D, are to rent non-BSA approved buildings, and they would just be used for staff use. So what would happen would be the staff office lounge in Meadowlark would be moved to that portable building, and then the staff building in the office would be utilized as a classroom. You can see that on option C and D, there's one-time costs and there's ongoing costs, that the rental costs of the buildings, and we would have to submit or enter into a 1-year lease for that. So, and as you can see, we'd only be gaining 1 classroom space for the floor. So district has really been considering, and we really would like to recommend the options A and B. So I'll kind of go over a little bit what we would be doing for A and B. So again, as I mentioned, these buildings are already BSA approved, and the only thing that we would be doing here is some repair work to make sure that it's up to snuff. So we would be refurbishing the playground area in terms of just the playground, not the playground structures, but the playground area would be cleaned out, and we could either replace it with sand or mulch. And then we would do some paving around the dirt lots so that it would have parking and drop-off spaces. We'd also repaint buildings, do some repair work on the ramps, and buy some new swing, actual swing piece, not the swing set, but just a little like holders, I guess, like a seat, I guess you would say. Yeah, but and so that would be the basic A and B, and based on our recommendations and just overall cost analysis, we'd like to recommend option B, replacing with mulch. The sand poses problems with carpeting. If it gets trapped inside, we don't want to, ruin the carpets even further and have to replace those carpets. So the mulch would be a little bit better option. The nice thing is the state has granted a universal pre-K implementation grant. That is one-time funding that we can use to expand our program. So this would mean no hit to our unrestricted funds. And with that, I will open it up for questions. Thank you.
No, I guess I go first. So now these are the buildings right over my left shoulder back here, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so C and D route, because you can't separate staff from where the students are, that's a no-brainer. Now what is this mulch? Is this the artificial mulch or real?
This one would be like the wood chips, wood chip mulch that they would come out. We have to be put in a certain impact rate so that it'd be safe for student use.
And they do, that's approved for student use to be participating in wood chip mulch.
Yes, as long as it's at a certain depth. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
And it's size particulates.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And you're saying that, what's the time frame for completing this task?
So this, if approved tonight to move forward with option B, we would have this done by the end of July at the latest.
So it'd be available for us for fall if we have the expansion. Now, in the event that, am I hearing it right, is that we're going to use them if we need them? Or we already know that we have best guesses that we're going to need them, we're going to have students there.
As of right now, our projections show that we would more than likely need them, so that our plan would be to open the school year with those housing the TK pre-K program.
And then where's going to be the segregation or the separation of students that are going to come to this facility as opposed to going to Meadowlark? Because I'm presuming that the Meadowlark principals and administrators are going to be responsible for this work here.
Yes, that's correct.
So they're going to go to Meadowlark and then the parents will bring it to Meadowlark and then the bus will bring them over here, or are they going to bring it directly here? The bus is going to make a route to drop them directly here.
There'll be an option for both, where the parents are going to be dropping them off, but we have discussed the drop off in the pickup area so that it's not impactful to any of the traffic that we have alongside Crown Valley. But that has to be discussed, and we've routed a plan for that as well in the fall.
So now, some of these students are going to be at Meadowlark in classrooms, and then some of them are going to be here at that same pre-K. All all of the students of that category are gonna be on this, they're not gonna, there's not gonna be a classroom over there and then 2 classrooms over here.
Correct, it would all be one, the grade level TK, pre-K would be located here, not, it wouldn't be one TK classroom at this.
Right.
At this, and one at the other.
Separate, okay.
Correct.
And then you say that you have, there's a grant accessible to us for the playground mulching.
Correct, yeah, the state issued a universal pre-K implementation grant, I think that was implemented last year. We didn't end up using any of those funds last year, so we have some carryover from last year, along with some additional funds that were.
We already have that one.
Correct. Yes, we have about, I want to say $150,000 in that implementation grant through the 22-23 school year.
That's all I have.
So the cost indicated is without the grant money or separate with the grant money? So
It's the total cost of the project.
Total
So,
cost.
yeah, we would utilize the funds that we already have, and it would cost, again, depending on the option, that's if we like to go with option B. We would take $96,000 change to from the implementation grant.
I think any property owners understands the effects of deferred maintenance. So just the thought that we would revamp these buildings and make them useful again, while preventing them deteriorating even further is a good move forward. So in the mulch, people interested in the mulch, Acton Park has that type of mulch that I think you're describing there in their playground. And it is far more friendlier than sand, not just for walking around and tracking and losing it, but just for falling down and cushioning. So it looks like good options. Thank you. Presentation, very, very good.
Yeah, good use of grant. That's fantastic. The letting that go unspent, we already have available would be pretty tragic if that were to occur. So what has caused us to believe that we're gonna have an influx of PK students?
Well, so partially the state has, so the way that the TK or universal pre-K program has been implemented is that each year an additional 2 or 3 months of eligibility is opened up. So when UPK was first brought about, it was only students that turned 5 at September 2nd through December, and then the next year it was December to February, and then this coming year will be March to April, and then the final year would be the rest of the year. So it's a projection at this point, but as we've seen the last 2 months, we've been gaining about 10 to 15 students, so that's what we projected.
So there's more customers, but
Yes, absolutely.
that's a larger group there, so that's good.
Correct.
What about, are there any other construction plans that are in place to deal with any other expansions in different other grades? I know you said there's a 7-month process, but if you don't start that, it never happens, right?
Right.
We have an influx of students that Small Band Ornament has been keeping track of at High Desert. However, there's a little bit more capacity in terms of classroom spaces at High Desert to accommodate. So we're looking forward to that as well.
So what like number of ADA do we run out of space currently with the current plans if we do this?
So this would gain us about 50 to 60 seats, if you will. So that would put us at about 1,050. If we got really over about the 1,070 mark, 1,080, then we would be running into issues potentially at the other school sites. But another thing to keep in mind is there's classroom ratios that we might have to utilize if it was a quick 1-year thing to be able to design it further. But I would say we have probably about 70 to 80 overall seats that we can still fill.
And the goal is to get to the 1440 mark, right? That's our
The break even point, yes.
1440, so an accompanying plan along with that would be good to see as well, just so we're thinking about that.
For sure, yeah, tonight was just about the upcoming school year. We knew
Sure.
that we needed to take action quickly, so we didn't want to inundate the board and our staff with coming up with a 5-year plan or a 4-year plan. We wanted to make sure we got this taken care of as soon as possible. So
Understood.
that
Yeah, that makes sense.
appreciate it, thank you.
Just one more thing to throw out there, on board, bringing these new students in, they're coming from obviously other schools, going from different areas, those transitions can be tough. There's two customers to think of in that respect, right? There's the parent and there's the student. Based on the grade level, will each need a different level of onboarding for each one. So just keep that in mind.
We have programs that we're working on to empower our parents through a parent ambassador program for 23-24 school year. Just to build skills and knowledge of the district and ease of the transition.
Perfect. First time. This is an example of if you're on a board, if you're a board member, you kind of talk about what's important to you, and then you let staff figure out how it's important to them, if at all, and when it fits into the work cycle and stuff. I was talking about the floor space here. I didn't have to dog anybody, so I very much appreciate this. This is important to me because in my world, if you have a financial need, a break-even need, and you don't have the floor space for that, the teachers are coming back from COVID and can't reach the kids, and then they're stacked in the room so thick that a teacher can't reach the kid. The teacher can look at a kid over there and say, that kid is really bored, this one is acting up, this one needs additional support. So if you don't have the floor space, it's like shopping, and not that I buy these cards, but did you ever go try to buy a Mother's Day card like the morning of, they're all picked through, there's 1,000 people there, and you just can't deliver the service you want. So floor space is important to me because if we have 1440 is our need, and we don't have 1440, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what we're talking about. We're not focused up. And then to Lester's point, once they get here, what are you doing to keep them here? Sometimes people move and say, I don't like it over there. And I've heard good things. It's like when I talked about a principal at Van Orn's sales pitch the other night, it was like they know why they want to be there. They can look at what they're seeing. But when you get there, the service level is poor. So this is number one, be self-sufficient. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the budget, but think about if we were ADA sufficient right now, or our budget was that, we would have got the extra $5.5 million in grants. What would we be doing now? Think about our programs there. We're kind of supplementing and depending on reserves. But couple of things I noticed. These buildings got painted back here. I never heard a word about it, but I went back there to go to the teacher below me or whatever it was. All the buildings are painted, and I went around to the back of them to see if they're painted, Yeah, there's a back to a building, right? You don't just, shine it up front, but there's all kinds of work going on in facilities. This ADA thing has gone on for so long, it predates me by 2 decades. The charter money was coming in so fast that this room was created, all these offices. This used to be a library, and this used to be special ed rooms with bathrooms and sinks and things like that. So it's one of those things where when there was that dependence going on that financial, I can't say that the focus was on the students here. It was kind of like, as long as we keep that rolling, we got the money, and I understand that reasoning. And as board member Costin said tonight, we're on the right track, and I'm seeing that being measured by the additional floor space. I think my direct question, and Lester touched on this, was if we keep this pace up of adding students, and I think you already answered this, when do we run out of the ability to fund at the level of 49,000 a year to put on an extra 50 or 60 kids? So there's 2 questions. Number one, do you have the space? And number 2, how can you budget? So take a note in 15 minutes or whatever. I'm gonna be asking you in the budget presentation, how much money you have freed up in fund balances. Number 1 for new permitted construction, number 2 for DSA, retrofitting and stuff like that. And I'm gonna ask you to project that out in the budget in your fancy spreadsheet. And we'll answer some questions later about what kind of facilities we can build and why and what the focus is for that. But thank you for bringing this up. I think that some of the logistics that we're talking about, I think there's a program like this back here now that is kind of mimicking this, so there's not a huge impact or anything. I think you've got enough room back there for a turnaround. I've been a parks and urban forest manager, which means the parks in Beverly Hills fell under my watch. Beach sand is not an appropriate use to air quality. We don't like to breathe sand, and I also don't like to see kids throwing sand in the eyes of other kids. I've had that happen too. So good job, guys. Really good job. Please be diligent about what this looks like next year and have a good relationship with TSA and not one of the people that are coming out here and popping you will seize work orders and that kind of thing. I very much appreciate it for.
My comment question had to do with the long-term plan, which the board members that have more experience in that area have already touched on that, so. Definitely a long-term plan for when so we're not scrambling in the future, is needed. And then my other question is, you said that this was where Sunny Days is currently held. Do we have a plan on where we're going to house Sunny Days? We're not just kicking them out.
No, they're a fantastic partner, and our community and our parents really look forward to that enrichment program. And their administration has already been spoken to. They're very accommodating, and we're finding them a space here at the Acton site, and so it's just been a great collaboration. So they're on board. So we're maintaining them for next year as well.
Okay, that's great, because I know that there's families in our district that absolutely depend on Sunny Days. How many classrooms at Meadowlark currently house TK in preschool?
My understanding is that it's two, like we have a pre-K TK class and then a straight TK class.
So moving those two classes over to here will free up two classrooms at Meadowlark, for when Meadowlark grows, we'll be able to expand into those two now empty classrooms over there.
Correct.
Awesome. And one more comment. When I went to school here, these were Mrs. Ranieri's class, and Miss Torr's class, kindergarten. I sat in that class over there every time I got in trouble. That's painting. That's the end of my comments. So we will be, now we're voting on the recommendation for option B. So this vote will be to approve option B. Is there any further discussion? All right, call for question. All those in favor?
It's the cost and I.
All you have, I.
Brianna Texoni, aye. Option B is approved. 11B, purchase of art education, university curriculum development and site license for district-wide arts curriculum. I feel like these titles are getting longer as I read
They
them.
are on move.
All right, Dr. Zakian.
So at the last board meeting, Ms. Carrie Owens and her Art Tulsa, she did a wonderful job of presenting to us the LA Artists Collective Plan, what they've been up to for this current academic year, what's been planned for the next 3 years out, and part of that was the purchase of the arts of education curriculum. So we are requesting for approval of the purchase of this 3-year license for the art of education. We will go ahead and provide on-demand curriculum for our teachers, and the funds will be encumbered by the arts block grant.
Thank you. Discussion?
No, I just think that it's an exceptional opportunity to take advantage of.
Call for question. All those in favor?
I have comments.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think this is good. Yeah, I was still trying to play. So I think it's a fantastic thing. I love the presentation we got the other day from it. I would only ask if it's possible, since we're using grant money to get this, is there any possibility for us to have training for the individual teachers so that, I mean, this is an amazing thing that's going to be available to them, but if maybe there's education needs to go along with, like, how do I as a teacher incorporate, because as Ms. Owens said, this can be incorporated into every aspect of the learning, whether it's math, your favorite subject, English, whatever it is, this can be incorporated in it, help reach those students. Like Ken said, it may reach you. But
Owen, translate what he's saying, please.
you could maybe look, and maybe they provide training for this, that could be incorporated with this quote and then all in grant like Facebook.
Yeah, so I know that the quote does include free for the main teachers, so we have 3 teachers that would be a part of Miss Sullivan, Miss Owens, and hopefully the new TOSA. Arts TOSA would be a part of that, and they would go through the initial training of the software, how to use it, curriculum design, like picking and choosing, because their curriculum is massive. They have so much to do that it would really require teachers to look into what would actually be brought into the classroom or so. And then from there, those teachers would bring up do the PD when we do our return to school PD. So, and if we do need additional PD, the company has said that they will provide them. So it's definitely a good to us there.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. We could make sure that was part of it, and then think about 3 years from now when we have new teachers coming on all the time and how we make sure they're educated.
Well, that you ask is the PD council meeting this Monday, between 1 and 3, and this will be part of the discussion.
Okay, call for question, all those in favor?
Tim Jorgensen.
Cost tonight.
Lester, yes.
All got lines.
Brianna Texani, aye. 11C, purchase of interactive panels and mounts to pilot. Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
All second.
So the district is looking to pilot 7 interactive panels for the upcoming school year, with the goal of replacing the aging and outdated projector combos that are currently in classrooms. So we'd like to go ahead and slowly initiate the transition and pilot. So we're looking to install 4 at Metal Arc, 1 at High Desert, and 1 at Vasquez. Any additional?
I included in the board presentation just a little write up of what's kind of gone so far. Just as a recap to that for the public, we did brought our tech committee along on this, which includes IT teachers. So all of them were really unison on this particular board, and this will just, like I said, bring us into the next generation of these smart panels. The old outdated combo projector units had more of a maintenance required on them, whereas these panels are, 1, it's a single unit, and 2, there's no replacing the bulbs. They'll stay bright longer, and it'll be better for the classroom use. You want to dim the lights, etc. So again, we're just looking to pilot initially so that we can get teachers on board. We'll be picking those teachers at High Desert, Vasquez. The tech committee will be a part of that, and then at the end of the year or towards the end of the year, we'll kind of get feedback and we'll bring another, hopefully a purchase to replace the remaining fleet that is still the projector panel combo.
Thank you.
Just if you can mention where the funding is coming from. Yeah, I know that people appreciate.
Sorry, yeah. The funding will be in the in-person instruction grant. These were funds that were given a couple of years ago to bring students back in. We have, I think, I want to say it's through the end of next school year to utilize these funds. We have about 230,000 remaining, and this will cost between the pilot and potentially the next year's purchase would just about use the rest of that up. So again, another use of expiring funds so we don't hit our membership with general fund.
Discussion, Tim?
Well, I'm just gonna compliment you because during my work with Cal State Bakersfield, I visited classrooms where some of my teachers that I was supervising had these in their classroom, and it just made their instruction more effective and more efficient, and they got more done, and the kids were engaged. So kudos to you. We need to bring these on.
Just curious, how many would we be purchasing? If this pilot program is successful, I believe it will be.
So, gosh, I don't think you do that. I forget the number off the top of my head. I want to say it's about 25 to
About
30.
35, okay. And these units are mobile, they can move around, or because I saw that's not, there are mounts included here.
So these particular ones would be on a movable, not a movable, but it would be an adjustable mount along the wall. There are options for movable ones, but that brings a lot of insurance issues. I know a couple of school districts that have used those mobile stands, and they cause more issue than they're worth personally, but it's always an option if we have a classroom or something that we do and fulfill the next purchase, maybe we do. For those classrooms that need it, we could look into that as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've been doing a lot of traveling the last 2 weeks and you can't go anywhere in the world without being flat screen everywhere. I mean, every piece of square inch that you travel to, I mean, more outside the United States than here, it's just everywhere at the airports, and it's good that the cost of these things become commodity, and our district can now afford this kind of thing, because 20 years ago, we couldn't even buy one of these things, and so progress is good sometimes, so.
Yeah, and I would just reiterate the kind of training piece, so if there's, not every teacher may know how to teach with this tool, and making sure that there's just some consideration to that to make sure that they're able to do it, and then when the larger quote comes through, just thinking about, I think you said there's no maintenance required, which is fantastic, especially a lot of savings, and that's what we were spending, but if there were to be extended warranties, maintenance, making sure that's all part of the base bit, especially if it's grant money.
Okay, I want to commend staff on something different. I have waited literally years for this reporting format to come through. I've asked for it numerous times. This is the reporting format. There's variances to it in my world. Anybody that picks this up, it kind of tells you, if you don't know why we're doing this, it's all right here. Why or how we come to the decision we made. Here's the factors. What decision needs to be made and what the fiscal impact. This is standard. I'm hoping that this becomes the model, because number one, it's professional. It's very professional. And when you put this stuff out to people, they go, these people, and it requires staff focus. It's not, just writing something down and standing up here. It memorializes the process. I have been to court numerous times where my staff reports going for years on recommendations and CEQA things and all that kind of thing become court evidence. And then finally, one of the things that's been very frustrating for me is when you come on the board, when I come on the board, when new people come on the board, there are issues that go on and on for years, like the solar panels. So they were being discussed 2 years when I was out in the audience for 5 years. They were being discussed, and then they'll drop off the face of the earth for a while while Edison is doing the design or something, then they'll resurface, and everybody thinks it's a new issue. And one of the most difficult things for a public employee is to get a council or a board that thinks that there has to be a new campaign for something new, and they have no respect for the work that's been done by people here before. That's what number 5, the civility statement is: maintain respect for the rich history of the district and efforts of those who served in the past. So if I want to know something and I want to do my research as a constituent or board member, I just search and I find the keywords in this, and I can track down, or I can say background. And then furthermore, in terms of efficiency, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It says, hey, this district's been here 138 years, and it's going to be here long after I'm gone. This district will not depend on any of us significantly over any period of time. But when I read this, I look at it, if I were to say, Kevin, why are you changing these now? You're saying, well, the breakdown of these is occurring. So how long were they in? Well, they were in for about 5 years. So if I were to ask you some Captain Obvious questions based on the technology, when do you think you should budget in your outlay for the next 10 years? How many times do you think? And it's all right here as Captain Obvious stuff. I'm hoping that the standard reporting from staff turns into this as an exemplary. Thank you.
I don't have any comments. Thank you very much for your report. Call for question, all those in favor?
I don't recall, but just tapping on what Lester said about PD for teachers to use this. When they see what this does for their classroom, they're going to be very eager, because it's just like infection. Oh my God, oh my God. It makes it so effective and engaging in the classroom. So they'll be lining up for PD to get it done. Where's mine? Where's mine? Tim Jorgensen, yes.
Cosby, yes.
Mascot.
Paul Jeff, yeah.
Brandon, text 99. 11D 2022-23 local control and accountability plan. Carrie, can I get a motion to open hearing? The hearing is open at 8:49 p.m.
So LCAP stands for Local Control Accountability Plan, is a tool for school districts to set goals, plan of action, and resources to meet goals to improve student outcomes, as we know. So the LCAP is typically a 3-year plan and has to be updated annually. Tonight, Mr. Vensko will be presenting the updated plan to our trustees in our community for approval. First, I'd like to thank the LCAP development team for their time and efforts with the stakeholder input, which led to the updating and the writing of the updated plans. Thank you, development team. Mr. Vensko.
So I think you guys like my floor space, so I'm no, I'm kidding. All right, so. Okay, there we go. All right, so, good evening, board members. Again, tonight we'll be presenting year 3 of the LCAP plan to you. Again, this is going to be the hearing portion, and then it will be approved hopefully at the subsequent board meeting. So, oops, I put on button. There we go. Okay, so what is the LCAP? Dr. Saki has already mentioned the local control accountability plan. It's an instructional planning document that supplements the district's budget. So a part of the review of this, the LACO makes sure that we actually include the funding for the action goals that we've delineated is actually in our budget. So it is it was implemented back when the LCFF was implemented in 2012, 2013, and it brings it's a roadmap to how the district is going to close the achievement gap. It provides a forum for our educational partners, those that are community members, DLAC, principals, staff, teachers, students even. It gives them a chance to voice their wants and concerns and hopes for the district. And again, as you mentioned, this is the 3rd year of a 3-year plan. So typically there's not many major updates. It's more of a reflection document, so to speak, going forward. And the LCAP also includes the not only a benchmark, initial data, but every year we show progress or lack thereof if we do have on each of those goals and actions. So what the LCAP brings in. So there's the 2023-2024 LCAP has the budget overview for parents, which is a little quick summary of the funds that we've included in the LCAP, what we haven't included in the LCAP, what dollars were earmarked for improving services, and how well we had done in the 22-23 school year in spending those budgeted dollars. Again, and then the next piece is the actual LCAP template. It includes the goals and actions. It shows, again, as I mentioned, the updates on the benchmark data, and then it brings some reflection summaries. And then finally, it's included with the budget piece, my part, and it includes all the 22-23 actuals to or estimated actuals to budgeted, and then it also includes the 23-24 planned expenditures. So as I mentioned, districts must include input from community education partners, and then those comments are brought in with the LCAP review team, and they review. They bring all that together and bring a reflection. And then, we go to the public hearing as we're doing right now, and then it moves forward to the June 22nd board meeting. Gosh, it's almost the end of June. And that will be adopted, and then it goes to LACO for final approval. As we've done so far, we've been having LACO review this periodically. So far, they have had no major concerns as to what we've put in so far. So there hasn't really been any updates that have been needed. So that's a good recommended step from the LA County Office today. So another piece of it, the LCAP must include at minimum all of the state priorities, and then there's also the local priorities that must be included. And so I'll just go quickly through the goals. I won't read all the actions, but I'll just as a reminder to the community what our goals are. So goal 1 is to provide high quality education system for all students, focusing on high academic rigor with a multi-tiered system with focusing on narrowing the achievement gap for all students. And as I mentioned, that unduplicated is all of our social, emotional, our ELs, our student disabilities, foster youth, and homeless youth. So as you can see, goal 1 has about 9 actions associated with it. Goal 2 is to eliminate barriers to student success and maximize learning time. This includes improving attendance and positive behavior. Goal 3, involving parents and community members and decision-making, so that, again, part of the LCAP process is including that, so that's part of that. It also includes bringing parents stakeholder feedback that we've implemented as well. Goal 4 is bringing students making sure students are graduating. I think, Brianna, you only said it twice, so I'll say it again, we have 100% graduation rate, and so you can see that in our benchmark data in the LCAP is located there as well. So, and then again, that arts plan is a part of goal 4 as well. And then finally, it's the safe schools and making sure their facilities are in order, and making sure that we have the proper instructional materials for our district. So again, as I mentioned, tonight we're doing the initial hearing. It'll go to the next board meeting for approval, and then it will be submitted to the county office. And I won't go through this whole part, but basically the county office will talk back and forth with the district and see if there's any updates that need to be made. But as I mentioned, we've already kind of talked through that with Waco. So I don't anticipate any major changes from now till next adoption. So with that, that concludes the presentation on the LCAP. Questions?
Thank you. Questions or discussion, Tim? Tom?
I just suggest to everybody, this is a really good read. It will take you a few hours. I've only started on it, but for anybody outside this room who really wants a good understanding of how things work and what we're working for, I suggest they do that. So Dr. Sakian, I don't know, I've been out for 2 weeks, but if we haven't sent a link to all our parents with the LCAP on it, I believe we should do that.
We have the adopted LCAP plan on our website. Once this is approved, hopefully June 22nd, moving forward, then we'll have it accessible to our community.
So the draft will still remain non-accessible until we sign off on it, is that correct?
Typically.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to reiterate, this is I got the opportunity to read it, and it's a ton of work obviously went into this. There's some a lot of great writing in there, and there's a very transparent view of where we're at and how we view ourselves and things we need to do that we want to improve on and make better. And I think one of the biggest highlights in it is the amount of money we're putting into things like, educator staff. I mean, we're really putting a lot of focus. It's almost 10% of our staff budget we're putting back in just for staff education and being able to help, move people along. That professional development. So I kudos to everyone that was part of it. I think one thing that kind of drew a little bit of a contrast for me, if you were to look at any of those public rating systems out there, like to go around rating schools, I think they need to read our LCAP, because a lot of those don't seem to really know all the changes and things that have gone on here. I thought that we should try to get rid of it.
Okay, so my question to you, excellent presentation. My question to you is, we are responsible between us and LACO for the charters, their LCAP documents. How are we, you anything you don't want to tell me about that? No. Good. Do you have sufficient resources to make sure that their LCAPs are fine?
Yes.
And then once we go through that, then they're under the same auspices of LACO. So LACO would tell you, no, this isn't going to fly.
Correct.
I didn't see that your stash and fund balances. I'll get to the fund balance thing about what's available in the budget part, but this is my 7th round of this. 7th time looking at this. I do understand the process. It's becoming more and more clear. I think there's something to what Lester said. I don't know. I don't know. They got hotel.com that tells you don't stay there or whatever, but I'm wondering, what is the process for reporting that gets our ratings that he's talking about, that the realtors and everybody look at? How do we input to that to where, parents that want to move to a town, I mean, expand on this, burn up my time. I want to hear more about this.
I think if you look on like realtor.com or one of those things where people are actually looking to move to our community, there's a little link on the bottom, the great schools ratings. And it couldn't be more inaccurate, and I don't think it's changed in years. I mean, there's some reviews on there that are ancient. And it's just not reflective. I mean, you look around this place, and see what things have done. And it's egregious the way they're rating some of our schools compared to what we're actually doing. So I think there's big opportunity there. If you're trying to bring ADA in, you're trying to forecast new stuff, and that's something that's publicly available. You're telling people an accurate story that's been built here.
Okay, so the part about community review, LACO requires that you reach out to specific groups, and if you don't reach out to those groups and show evidence, it's my understanding that you actually tape those. Or somehow you have documentation
An artifact, a photo.
that says that the SPED group was talked to, that the teachers were talked to, that you have opened up public hearings. I know there were times I went where I was the only parent there, but so there has been input from stakeholders. LACO is ultimately the one that is going to tell you whether or not this is sufficient, whether you're meeting your goals. This might mainly focuses about basically identifying your areas of struggle, which is typically the old Title I students. And this is a way of giving local control to the districts where they can spend the money. So you don't have somebody doing a line item for $1,000 every those days. And so it's an accountability piece. So I like the presentation. But just please, we can't afford to have charters not doing their audits and their LCAPs, please, thank you.
I do know a crazy amount of work goes into this document, so thank you very much, Joe, for putting this together. To everybody who was involved, so we appreciate it. Any other discussion? All right, we'll close the hearing at 9:01 p.m. 11E 2023-24 budget hearing. Can I get a motion to open the hearing? The hearing is open at 9:02 p.m.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Bensko to continue part B of LCAP, this will be the budget portion.
It's my show today, I love it. So tonight, we're gonna be presenting you the 2023-2024 adopted budget. So we're gonna go through the budget cycle. I'll talk about the planning factors that went into this budget. We'll look at our estimated actuals versus the adopted budget. We'll move on to multi-year projections, next steps and considerations, and then we'll follow it up with any Q&A. So budget cycle. So this is going to be report 1 for this coming fiscal year. It encompasses the adopted budget for 23-24, but it also includes the 22-23 estimated actuals. The reason we do the estimated actuals is so that we can get a starting point, a fund balance beginning for the 23-24 school year. And as we go through the year, this slide will come up and I'll have my pointer around it. And I'll kind of give you a little bit about what's going on throughout the budget cycle. But today is our first look at the 23-24 budget. So planning factors. So to build a budget's only as good as the planning factors that are used to create the budget. You know that planning factors change. I already know that some of these planning factors are incorrect already because I messed up, but I'll point those out as we get through. But planning factors change as we go along. And we use currently for our revenue side, we look at the governor's May revise as our main starting point for our revenues for the 23-24 budget. So we'll go through the enrollment. Our next year's enrollment is that we're projecting flat based on a cohort method for the most part. We're gaining about 7 students from our CalPADS report from last year. And then we move on to 1,000 and 1,000. This is kind of a combination of the demographers report and our intent to returns that we've received and just principal feeling. We've kind of looked at all the different data points that we've received so far. So this is where our enrollment is projecting somewhat flat for right now. But again, those don't really take into consideration any big influxes from, from a charter that's max exodus or vice versa. So, and then actual ADA, and attendance rate. So one thing I want to point out is, this 89.8% attendance rate. That was what our P2 attendance rate was this last year. And so, in order to be conservative, I'm going to keep that for the out years as well. I hope that we don't have that low. I hope that we continue to gain. That's going to be one of our goals for the upcoming year. But in order to be conservative and not to over project revenues, I'm keeping that at about up to 90%. Historically, we've been more like the 94 to 95%. So, but again, it's all me personally, I like to be conservative so that we're not hitting and going on revenues that we may actually not get. So funded ADA, so the difference is you can see that our actual ADA to our funded ADA is definitely different. The state has 3 ways to come up with funding. You either have prior year, greater, prior year, or current. And then this last year, they threw in a 3-year average to help with the decline in enrollment around the state. So our funded ADA for the next 3 years is about 926, 911, and 906. Those are butts and seats, I guess, in layman's terms, if you want to go with that. COLA, as the governor projected, we have about an 8.22% COLA for the current year. And that will be applied to the LCFF among other categorical programs. And then here's the one that I messed up on. I apologize. This average unduplicated account is actually at about 63%, not 48%, my apologies. And then mandate block grant is just, it's the little bit of money that the state gives us for all of the mandates that are put upon us. This funding is clearly not enough to cover all the mandates that it give us, but we'll take any money as that we can get, but this usually gets adjusted with the COLA as well. So that's the revenue side planning factors. On the expenditure side, we have CPI and stepping column. So those 2 things happen on the natural. So without even lifting a finger, our district is going to have potentially a 4 to 5% increase on our costs each year without the district negotiating any new salaries or any new health and welfare benefits. These just happen on the natural. And then we have our STRS and PERS. The nice thing as of right now, our STRS percentage is staying flat at 19.1. But with the poor performance in the stock market, our PERS rates, employers rates are increasing by almost 2% over the next 3 years. So something to consider in the out years. And then our staffing, because we're projecting about a flat enrollment, we are projecting that our staffing will remain about the same. So that goes through the planning factors. So what does that mean for our adopted budget? So here's a look at our unrestricted and restricted estimated actual versus our adopted budget. And I like to point out the unrestricted and restricted separately, because unrestricted is just that. It's funding that we really have accessible, and we have more authority to spend the way the district so chooses. Whereas restricted are our Title I's. There are grants, one-time funding that we get from the federal and state. It includes our special ed funding, et cetera. So again, I like to point out the differences because, if you put it just in a whole picture, you may not get the correct picture of how the districts really do it. So just a quick overview of that. You can see that from 22-23, we have a net change in our unrestricted or net deficit, so to speak, of 2.1 million and going to about 950,000 for the 23-24 adopted budget. And then on the restricted side, you can see a major difference in revenues and expenditures as the one-time funds are expiring, COVID, the emergency learning block grant, et cetera. And then on the multi-year projection side, so there's a part of our budget process, we have to show that the district can meet our financial obligations for not just the current, but the next 2 out years. So one part that I would like to point out, again, we're in a deficit spending model as of right now. And again, that kind of is really due to that 90% attendance rate. Every percent of attendance that we lose about $175,000 of funding. So if we go back up to our 95% of funding, we're gaining almost $800,000 of funding over the next, each of the next 3 years. So again, not only is attendance important for education, that's the #1 goal. Forget the funding, it's important that kids are in seats because the lost instructional time has proven over the pandemic, we can't afford that. But it also helps our bottom line as well. So that would be a big help on our out years if we get our attendance rate back up to that 94-95%. And then on the restricted side, again, as our one-time funding is kind of expiring, usually federal and all those other restricted fundings are revenues in, revenues out. So it stays, the net change usually is pretty well flat. There might be some one-time funds that get carried over year to year. With that, then I'll move into, this is the overall picture. So again, I mentioned net deficit spending over the next 3 years. We have our reserve for economic uncertainty at about 48%. And then, like, as I mentioned, as we're deficit spending, those reserves are going away slightly. So we're going to 48 to 45 to 42%. And that is already without our any additional capital expenditure plan, which I know we'll get into in a little bit. All right, so finally, next steps consideration. So I'll keep it kind of short. So the May revision had some things, again, the governor is putting in 8.22% COLA. However, he has proposed cutting 2 of the major block grants that were already issued to school districts. The arts, music, and instructional material block grant by half. As of right now, we've already received half, so the governor is proposing not to give us that second half. The second would be cutting that learning recovery emergency block grant by about 32%. Another piece of that is Prop 28. That's still kind of up in the air on what terms of trailer bill language they're going to throw on that. Remember, that was the 1% of Prop 98 funding that is going to be going strictly for arts education. One big thing I'd like to point out, the legislation highlights, is that we have a highly risky budget. The LAO, the Legislative Analyst Office, has stated that the governor's projections are 2/3 likely to be overstated. So again, we have to be prudent, and that's also why I stay prudent with my attendance rate, is that we don't know if our revenues will be at that level. So we've got to be careful with that. The other piece of it is statewide bond bills that have been pending and they've been approved initially. So that's a positive for the potential capital expenditures that we might need for facilities. And then the legislature, instead of cutting these arts grants and learning blocks, they kind of come up with a couple of different options of reducing without cutting those programs, like instead of how the governor's wanting to do that. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. Our next steps is that the adopted budget is due to be approved before June 30th. And depending on how material those changes are, I personally like to do a 45-day budget revision anyway. It's a good another, kind of check back in point in August. And then we'll be coming by with the unaudited actuals for 22-23 in September. And we'll finally get our first interim budget in December of 2023. And with that, that's the budget. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and start discussion with Tim.
Well, first off, tell Gavin Newsom that we want the money. So, as Ken, Mr. Paul's pointed out, is that one of the first places they cut is cut. Do you have, what's the impact on that for us? On this, you may revise where they're thinking they're going to cut things in half, you said?
So yeah, on the arts piece, we received about 100 and we were allocated about $320,000 if I remember correctly. So we received about 160 of that. So there's $160,000 that the governor's proposing to take away. And then on the learning recovery, I want to say it was about $200,000 to $300,000. So 30%, that's about $70,000 to $90,000, give or take. So it's an overall $250,000. So that's the cost of, we'll say, 4 teachers, 5 teachers.
So your conservative approach to that is like, in order to protect and preserve our endeavors with arts and inclusions of the new programs, there's method to the madness that you have something in the wind that we're going to be able to continue those programs while they get their act together on Saturday.
Correct.
And I noticed that you had 89 or something like that for ADA. And you said we technically operate around 94%.
Correct.
And have we had any success with enhancing and improving on our ADA to have our kids in the seats so that we get paid?
I mean, so as I mentioned, so this last year, that 89% is what the P2 was for this fiscal year. So this is the first year we were fully back 100%. It's been, without the COVID model. So I know that our goal, and I know Eric and the instructional team are working on that piece there.
Just comparing to last year, everybody reacclimating to direct instruction and back in the schools and the seats. We're at about maybe 84–85%. That was a struggle. Slight bump this year, but we're not anywhere near where we need to be in terms of, historically speaking, 93–94% ADA. Our principals have done a wonderful job this year with re-implementing the mandated process of truancy notifications, SART, the student attendance review team, and then any referrals that need to move forward to the last tier of the SART, the student attendance review board. But in addition, for June 22nd, there will be a presentation in terms of our PBIS, positive behavior intervention supports, and incentives for students and the school sites. We're looking to have a consistent process in place to incentivize positive behavior, which may include improved attendance at the school site. So we're looking in multiple ways in terms of making sure that we engage students and incentivize even positive attendance on the campuses.
I know that there's always work and focus on enhancing ADA and making sure our students are, but I do want to compliment staff for the investment that we're making to encourage our students to participate in class with the new programs at all three of our sites and the projected enrollments in those classes, which you have shared in conversations, has leading to the fact that, oh, they're doing that over there. And then that's that customer that comes in and we'll get them here and say, oh, this is what you could do when you come here. So though I'm concerned about that, it's always a tough gig, but compliments. We ought to keep working on investing in what we do because to help the students be successful with these new programs, along with all the other good things that our teachers are doing. So sharpen the pencil and keep that line open to second.
On the attendance thing, do our numbers follow the neighboring districts more or less, or are we an outlier in terms of the drop and then the slight creep up?
We're not an outlier. Majority of districts have been struggling with ADA students in their seats as we return back from COVID. There's been a slight increase, and most districts are looking at ways to recapture attendance. We're not alone, so I know that just neighboring districts, LA County districts, calls that have been on with LAGO, many of the superintendents and cabinet members have indicated exactly the same struggles that we're going through, but we're pretty much apart, but we have some ways to go. Bless you, everyone.
Okay, the second thing is we have this RTI development and our projection numbers. We consider, and now this development is, they're embattled, I would say would be the right word, but like all things in LA County, eventually they happen. So have we taken into consideration those numbers for enrollment? And what about the funds that brings? Have we received those? Will we receive those? Is that something that has been accounted for?
So yes and no. So next year, around the February time in about 2024, we'll be bringing another demographer's report, which would basically incorporate any new developments and stuff like that. So we only get a developer report every two years. They typically don't change much year to year. I mean, my experience from New Hall is that they pretty much stay fairly flat from year to year. So that's why I know Acton gets it every 2 years. So we'll be bringing that piece in February so that we can get an update on what they project that particular development will bring in. And at this point, because we only look at about 3 years of attendance or enrollment, it would take, those housing will take a minimum a year at this point to be able to even build it. And then they don't typically get any, we don't typically get any of the developer fees until they actually pull permits for the actual buildings itself. So those are not projected as of right now. But as we go through in the first and second interim, if we do start to see those permits pulled, we would update our projections then.
Right, so the last demographics report we got was pretty flawed. Superintendent is aware that I brought that up to him in terms of the birth rate, the zip code area that they used. They were completely unaware of that project, never even looked at it. So has that been accounted for? I haven't followed up on that in a while. I was just curious if that report is what we're going off of still, or has that report been appended or corrected in any way?
But at the time we reached out to Davis Demographics, the report wasn't amended. So based on the Davis Demographics that we have, we went by the data that was reported, and then based on the projections that we have for the possible projections that we have accounted for informally from our principals from online registration. So there's no one to go ahead and ask me our numbers for next year and 2 years out. But we're looking at, there's other demographers that are out there, and then we're looking to bring them back in the fall.
And this is my demographic things. When you bring outside companies like that, and a lot of times they don't really know, they look at a lot of session data, they do a lot of online searching. It seems to be somewhat superficial at times. Is this something that we could look at, not necessarily doing in-house, but at least working alongside the company and making sure that they have a little better view of what goes on here in terms of boundaries, postal zip codes, because we're a little unusual. Our district boundaries are a little strange, our postal zip codes are a little strange. The census doesn't really identify us by Acton Agua Dulce. And we have more knowledge here, and I'm gonna say that even the Acton Town Council's got a serious amount of knowledge in who lives here and what development goes on here. And maybe they should be involved in this next demographic study. And I'm sure they would be happy to help.
Yeah.
I do know somebody on the council, but I'm going to nominate Jack here to be the source of the data, and I will make that happen.
When we would review the demographer, potential demographer, I know that they have to use some superficial data. Unfortunately, it's statistics and actuarial studies for the most part. But part of a good enrollment projection uses that demographer's report as kind of like maybe a baseline. But really, as our students are known well by our principals and our staff, so that's really where we get the real data from, if you will, or if you want to call it real data. So again, that's my custom too. I know it. I'll bring in Dr. Linger just because he was good at coming up with enrollment projections that may have looked different than demographer's report. And usually Dr. Linger was more right than the demographer. So it really is, like you said, it's a community-based piece. So yeah, we could definitely look into that and be a little more of an alongside when we do these demographer reports.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
It's a long report. And hopefully it's a lot of it was automated from the accounts. Didn't look like too much. Yeah, it really jumped out that there was a large reduction in revenues that we were going to be facing this year. I was equally happy to see that we also reduced operating expenses as well. Was that directly in line with things we don't have to do anymore, or were there other items that were looked over?
Yeah, partially, a lot of the operating pieces are mostly due to those one-time funds that are kind of expiring. So this is gonna be more in line with what our baseline expenditures would be. So
Hey, we're still dipping into our reserves that will be able to continue to function. So thank God we have them. I don't know what they are.
yes, absolutely. That, and again, like I said, it's being conservative with that ADA is really what's going to. I'd rather show the worst case scenario and not be surprised by it, and hope that we're pleasantly surprised come first interim and that we will be having a better ADA. So
I think we mostly understand what this is for, right? This is definitely a very conservative view. It's worst case scenario, kind of, okay, this is what we at least can hope to expect. I think at some point we'd all love to see it optimistic, like a marketing report. With some targets and
All right, you ready? First off, ADA, I mean, short of grabbing up a sheriff deputy and going to people's houses and banging on their door, I don't know that that's illegal. You have what you have, and I think that coming out of COVID, you have to realize kids don't want to go to school unless their friends are there. And if they're being bullied or sorted or excluded, they don't want to come to school. So I think the initiatives that we have about making sure that there's equality and all the kinds of things that I talk about. I think that's the key. As far as these developments, if your town is anti-development, don't depend on developer fees. That's pretty easy to figure out. Next thing, I don't know that that's not a trailer court out there, and I don't know how many young people are able to buy up with them houses and pads that look pretty big. But I do see that there are going to be houses there. I also see people that can't figure out there's probably 50 million in grading work up there just to begin with. And so, yeah, if you think it's not happening, I'm sorry, it is. And so I'm sure that when you can talk about what the developer fees are going to be, and I would hope that everybody in this town, when you're dealing with a developer that's got that kind of money into that project, you maintain a relationship that's not animostic with them, where you can tell them, hey, are you a part of our community? Do you want to sponsor the sports complex we're talking about? Because I'm fixing to tie into you about that. If you're up there yelling at people all the time and trying to shut their job down, that doesn't get you very far. I don't sell out to developers. When it comes to doing projections, I want Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and Toothbury to be at my house tonight, but they will not be. I can guarantee you, no matter how much I talk about what's going to happen. I've been on this board for going into 8 years. I watched the projections and I watched them become reality. So the projections last year were 903. So it was flawed because we're at 1,000 now. And that has nothing to do with some projection somebody made or something like that. It's people doing work and getting programs rolling around. Well, some of us are being bashed all the time. But there's a lot of work going on by the staff to put these programs in places that are producing the results we're seeing right now. Is held silently. So we're holding our market. I want to be clear about this. Isn't something for us up here to tell the school district how to run the money. None of us are qualified to do that. That's why we hire you. If you can't do it, I'll take your money if I think I'm an expert, but none of us are that kind of experts in finance when it comes to school. The only reason we're doing this right now is because, correct me if I'm wrong, LACO demands that we do this to be transparent to our public. It's not a display of how smart I am at running money. That's what this is. So now let's get into some hard questions. What amount of charter encroachment has there been in our general fund? In other words, we know that you don't make any money. We know that it's illegal. Right. So have we had to spend more of our kids' money to support the charters? No. Good, thank you. Do you have any anticipated legal exposures that you've had to put in some fund balance that you can't really talk about? Is there any big pending legal payoffs like the $700-some-thousand that Dave had a rat hole 3 years ago that nobody could know about when the grand jury said, pay this or your partners are going to go to jail? None of those. Wow. So we don't have $700,000 rat hole somewhere. That's good. We talked about development fees. They'll show up when they do, but I want a good relationship with those people. Anybody that can't relate to them good, you don't sell out to them. It's already been approved. We don't give them any more or less. It'd be a good thing for that person to realize, I come into this town, I want that place clean, I want it right, I want to make sure that the people down the road don't get run off and floods, and the people who live here aren't subsidizing them while they make money. But that out of the way, that's what the county is for. That out of the way, I think we should be able to walk up to them at some point and not be in their pocket and say, how much are you willing to put in a sports stadium? Because I'm going to talk about that right now. From all your fund balances, what amount of money can you transfer legally without legal? Oh no, you can't do that. That's for kids' education. what amount of fund balance do you have right now that you can transfer into a permitted new construction?
So we really, the board, the legal requirements, if you really went down to it, we have to have a 4% reserve, which is asinine to begin with. 4% wouldn't even cover 1 month's payroll. So that's if you want to go bare minimum, you could go down to 4% reserves, but I know that this district and this board would not want that.
Don't assume that yet.
Well, no, I won't assume that, but I would say that we, prudently, the average reserve for a school district throughout the state is about 20%. So that's where that's the average, but again, we're a different, smaller district dealing with smaller numbers, so that percentage doesn't really help us. 4% of an $18 million budget is, $400,000. That's, again, like I said, that's barely gonna cover
If
it.
you look at the warrant registers, sometimes they hit 600,000 apiece. Sometimes they hit 1.2 on the pass through for the charters. Nobody understands pass through. You got to give them their money before you get yours. Okay. I remember last year when Mr. Mirza was up there. I'm glad you could run off to the beach and leave us all here, but we love your replacement. Hassan, you're the best. Then David, you were the best. So I recall last year seeing reserve levels at 72%. And of course, that strikes me that you had all this money coming in from the state, this one-time stuff. And that's going away. Correct. So in other words, where I come from, 72% down to 48%, that's a big jump out of nowhere. And that's nothing that this district did. And that Hallmark card I gave about how important arts are, I just told you, I read things. They're taking money back that they gave you and promised you. That's called betrayal and deception. They didn't ask me if I want to do that when I filled out my tax check, did they? So this idea that we've got to have somebody on the outside world making arts important, you should talk to Miss O'Brien and Miss Scheide in the 4th grade class, and all the teachers at Meadowlark and all the staff to figure out how to keep a program going. The governor will rob art money from your own children. What a farce. Okay, the STRS rates, where I come from, that's comparable to workman's comp rate. So if you're a tree company and you've got the right mod factor, you're paying $40 for every $100 of payroll. Is that comparable to here? So in other words, a rate of 19% would mean if I pay $100 in payroll, I pay $19 in benefit programs.
Correct.
And that's mandated.
Correct.
That the district does not set those fees. And of course, everybody remembers the old days when the stock market was booming, people were paying nothing and all of a sudden they're coming back. You have future liabilities. When it goes up even worse, there's more losses on the retirement funds of people that retired 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I bank on that personally because I could be one of those people. I'll be welcoming you to Walmart and things. So, all right, I'm 72 years old. I'll end by saying this. This is what the work is. There's so much of this work that staff does that's mandated by the state and the county. They're not here to exercise my whim on what I want to know this week. They are here doing this stuff. Very few of the things that are brought forward to us to discuss are initiatives of yours. You're just keeping your head above water. Do you have any relaxations on you compared to what's required of Long Beach Unified?
Yes, sir.
Same thing. It's just they got a lot more kids, a lot more staff. So I appreciate everything y'all do. One of the high points of my service on the board is we've always had somebody in that spot that the superintendent just cut loose and you just tell us what's going on. I appreciate your professionalism. And I'm so glad you're here. Thank you.
First comment will be on the report as a whole. I feel like this is seamless from Mr. Mirza to you, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for making it feel like our district hasn't missed a beat in our budgeting and That is a huge testament to also Mr. Mirza, how he left the books, and then I also felt like that when Mr. Mirza first started, so, thank you very much for, like Ken said, for just keeping it professional, and that's a testament to you for making it a bit higher in this man right here. I was able to work at High Desert as the attendance clerk, with an attendance expert in this position under Miss David, and she was actually incredible in sharing information and all that, so I do have a little bit of grasp in ADA and how attendance works and all that. When we say we're out of COVID, we're not out of COVID. Parents are keeping their kids home way more. We used to send our kids to school with runny noses. And you just have a cough, as long as you don't have fever, you're going to school, kid. We can't do that anymore. If you have a runny nose, you're staying home. If you have a headache, you're staying home. So kids are staying home at a much higher rate, even if they don't have COVID. Everybody still has that on their mind, and we're keeping kids home at a higher rate. And that's why COVID is technically disappeared, right? Like now we're over COVID because we're keeping kids home at a higher rate and not spreading that. So COVID, we're still feeling the effects of COVID in our attendance numbers, just because we don't mandate that whole classrooms go home for 10 days anymore, doesn't mean it's not affecting our attendance. And I do know that we have the attendance recovery program, and I would like to see the effects of that attendance recovery program. And that does take time. It's not an overnight thing, and whatever program that you have going on with the school sites, going on with parents in particular, that would, to see those numbers increase gradually will show how well that attendance recovery program is working. One thing that I said, I'm pretty sure I said it when I first interviewed to be on the board. We have a huge homeschool population in our communities. We do not have an incredible homeschool program in our school district. We don't have a homeschool program in our elementary school and junior high. One thing that would raise ADA is to really up our district homeschool program and bring back those families in our district that want to be a part of our district, but they do not want their child in sticks and bricks. Something to think about, obviously not a directive, but it is something that I've said a couple of times. A homeschool program, a robust homeschool program in our district would bring in ADA, and that's not going to require facilities on our campus, but it would allow our students in our district, in our communities that should be in our district, to participate in High Desert's amazing sports program. We have parents that would love for their kids to be a part of Vasquez High School. They don't love their homeschool program, and I know that we could really pull those kids in and increase that ADA and increase our funding if we did up our homeschool program. So that's one creative way to bring in those students that have left and gone to other homeschool programs in outlying communities. So that's all. Does anybody else have anything? All right, we'll go ahead and close the hearing at 9:38 p.m. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right, 12A calendar, our last regular board meeting of the 2022-23 school year is on June 22nd, and then the board is on hiatus. 13A future agenda items. We have director or principal job descriptions, sports facility, long-term plan, governing board member roles and responsibilities with staff training. Do we have any additions to future agenda items? Moving on to 14A, adjournment. It's recommended the board adjourn the meeting at 9:39. Can I get a motion?
I moved.
I'll second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Cost and
Lester is.
Well, aye.
Brianna Tech, I meeting is adjourned at 9:39 PM.